All right, hey guys, it's Luke, and I just wanted to jump in on a couple things that I've seen. I was away on vacation for the last couple of weeks, and I'm back at it. So there's some things I'm catching up to, but I was able to post a little bit and share some things over the last couple of weeks. But first day I've actually been able to really go in and look through some of the posts that you guys have been making, and so I had three things I really wanted to touch on real quick. There's a lot of things in here that people are posting on that are asking some questions about that we've either talked about quite a bit in the past, that I've written about in blogs, or that are covered thoroughly in the book. And so I encourage you to, if you have the book, reread those sections that you're talking about. So there's a lot of stuff on like nutrition and hydration that I think that we've talked about quite a bit, especially in the book. Adjusting schedules, things like that we've talked about quite a bit in the book, and I have blog posts on. So things like that, I would say do a search in here for those things to see some of the discussions that we've talked about. And then go look in the units where I have a lot of blog posts posted that I've written in the past that are defined by section. And so make sure you're looking at that stuff. And then I also know, and I know I'm going to get some pushback on this, but because this is a group basically off of the books. However, the program is out there for free in a lot of places, and people have picked that up, but they don't have the books. And I would suggest spend $15, buy the updated version of the book, because you're going to have a lot of valuable resources in there as far as the discussions that you're asking these questions about, where you're going to get very detailed answers on those things. So make sure you're using those first. Plenty of free resources right here. And at the very worst, you can spend $15 and get the books and have a lot of resources there. So I would make sure you're doing that. And then if you don't see those answers, definitely come back and ask those questions. But a lot of you are asking questions that there's already a ton of information out there for in this group, specifically. So just make sure you're doing that. The other thing, and this is what really kind of was a little concerning to me, was the number of folks who are posting about feeling cumulative fatigue right now. And if you're feeling like the one post I'm thinking of in particular, they're in the second week of the program and they're already feeling pretty rough. And that's, cumulative fatigue is not pleasant by any means, but you're not meant to feel this at any point in the first month. So there's a lot going on there. You have to really look at your paces. If you're really hell-bent on hitting the exact paces in your workouts, and it's hot out, like right now, it's 11 o'clock in the morning, it's already 85 here, and I'm sure in other places of the country it's much, much warmer than that. So you have to take those things into account, and then you have to take into account, are you recovering well? And I can't stress that stuff enough. I know I talk about this every time I get on here, but it is so important, you guys. Like, you have to be hydrating, you have to be getting the electrolytes, you have to be getting the carbohydrates in if you're doing longer workouts. You have to make sure you're giving yourself the fuel you need to be able to do the workouts. And so I can't stress that enough. So again, I push back on that and say, go back to the posts that we've talked about all these things. Make sure you're looking at some of the previous chats where we've talked about these things. But really focus on those details. It's not about just crossing a day off of your calendar and saying, well, I got the 6 miles in a day, I built my fitness. Well, that's part of it, but it still comes down to how well you're recovering and how well you're carrying those other things. And some of it seems a little self-inflicted, and not everybody. I just know, like, the one person who posted on this, they admitted that they messed up on the first day of the plan, and then they said they ran a 10K race in the first week of the plan, which is not really what that's intended for. Like, you shouldn't really be racing that first month. If you're following like the classic Hanson's Marathon Method plan, if you're in the beginner plan, those first 4 weeks are meant to be a build-up, to build your mileage up to get you ready for workouts. If you're in the advanced plan, then that's meant to just really kind of extend those speed segment for you. But the first couple of weeks are definitely not meant to be racing. So you have to really be careful of that. So really take that big picture view of things. Are you looking to run fast in the spring, or are you looking to run fast marathon in the fall? And that's where you have to really be cautious of. And again, all factors, right? So anything like Sleep and nutrition are obviously going to be big ones. And I know it's hard. You got kids, you're running all over the place. You might be going back and forth with like vacation, coming back. There's a lot of stuff going on, but you really have to do everything you can in order to make sure. But the biggest thing I would say is just you can't be hell bent on paces right away because it's hot out, especially, and if you're just starting a build up, it's going to be tough to just nail those paces and have it in the heat and humidity that we're having. So just be careful of that. And then lastly, the main thing I wanted to talk about was, I apologize if I did not pronounce this right, but Kyrie, I thought he had a great question in here. So he starting the 12-week half marathon plan, that's a 30-mile-a-week plan, and he's off where he needs to be at the moment. So I'm assuming he probably had a little bit of a setback, things like that. But basically, he's behind where he thought he would be right now, and he's starting the plan in a week. And so he is curious how to approach the pacing. And so his plan was to aim for 210, but after he ran a 10K yesterday, not sure, or he's sure that he will currently struggle with that pace, which is good that he recognized that. That's a great place to be in, to recognize it instead of going full force and just kind of forcing the issue. In a few weeks with my nutrition back in place and he knows he'll do faster, do I start slower and increase as I get fitter? And so the simple answer to that question is yes. I think that's perfect. So you start a little bit slower, you build into those paces as your fitness improves. Maybe you're going to drop a little bit of that extra weight that you're trying to get rid of, things like that. But yeah, you're going to put yourself in a much better position if you allow yourself to build into those paces rather than try to force the issue right away and then just get overcooked. So I think that's the way he's approaching that is great. I think that's a perfect thing to look at. And something, when you look at like a 12-week schedule, we are making certain assumptions. We're making assumptions that you're already ready to go. You're ready to jump right into it and ready to go. And so if Kyrie was trying to run, say, like under 130, I might be a little bit concerned with where he's at. If he's really that far behind and then going to jump into a 12-week plan. But if he's running at 210, and this is nothing against Kyrie, but his main issue isn't going to be whether or not he can hit 10K pace. His biggest issue is going to be whether he has the endurance or not. And 12 weeks is plenty of time to build that endurance, because 210, he's talking about mostly a lower intensity aerobic effort, right? So if you double that for the marathon, you're talking 420. So really you're talking like a 420, 430 marathon. And we talk about those people, their biggest problem isn't necessarily 10K speed. Their biggest problem is they have to build the overall endurance to be able to cover that ground. And if they can do that and they can just be consistent for an extended period of time, they're going to be pretty successful. So you just cut that in half for him. And in his situation, if he can just build his endurance, he's going to be pretty well off for being able to run that 210. So he's not out. I don't think he's going to be off as far as he is, as long as he's recognized that he's got some things to work on. He's recognized that he's not where he wants to be, but he's willing to adjust back so that later on he's going to be in the position he wants to be. So if he just keeps plowing through on this and saying, no matter what, I'm going to run at these paces, he's probably going to end up taking a bigger step back than what he originally thought he was going to be at. So I think he's in a great spot. And just take a little bit of, you take a half to a full step back now and give yourself a few weeks to come back to where you were going to be, then moving forward is going to be so much smoother than trying to just keep pushing forward on that. So I think that's a great position. Having that patience and that insight to really recognize where he's currently at, I think is really key. So I think that's great for him. And if you're in a similar situation, I think that's a good place to be. So, you have a couple other things to do. Like if he's set on this, he has 12 weeks until this race, then there's nothing he can do. He's got to modify to do what he can to fit this into his race, right? But if you have options, you haven't really settled on a race, the other option would just be to find a race further down the road, pun intended, and then set yourself up where you can build up to where you wanted to be, and then jump into that 12-week schedule. And then it doesn't matter, the weeks is arbitrary at this point. But if you want to extend that schedule out, you certainly could, to give yourself more time. But if the race is set, and I completely understand that, then you modify what you can and give yourself the best opportunity for success. And I think the way he's looking at that is going to do that for him. So with that's all I really want to touch on today. And I saw that Darren asked a question So my thoughts on Stride foot pods, power running. It's not. I think it's like anything, right? It's like pace. It's like heart rate. It's a data point. It's a set of data points. And so, admittedly, I don't know how to incorporate that into training quite yet. It's definitely of interest to me. And I know Stride just came out with this big update with factoring for wind, which when I talked to Final Surge, who first got on board with Stride, they admitted that was definitely an issue, and it seems like they've corrected that. But to me, it's more data, right? And so at some point, more data isn't necessarily better, because I think ultimately, if I can teach people how to get their internal data and utilize that with the external data, then that's where they're really going to see improvements in their running. And that's where we have to kind of be at. And so I think, I'm still trying to do that just with paces and things like that. Even heart rate, I guess, is especially this time of year, I'm struggling just even to get people to recognize that the effort and intensities aren't necessarily going to match up. So it is nice, and I'm sure it is nice. I'm sure those updates are very, very nice. But Darren, I think you were the one that told me about them using Hanson's based plans, which they never asked me about. So I kind of have an issue with that, and I'm waiting for the right time to reach out to them and just kind of see where they're at. Maybe they asked Kevin and Keith to do it. I don't know, but that's not necessarily good practices to just take somebody's schedule and put it on your website for free. But that's another issue. I think Jim Vance, I think, is the inventor of Stride. So he's got a book out through VeloPress, which I can easily have access to, which is on my reading list. But I've got other books that I'm got ahead of that list. So we'll see. But overall, I guess I'm not against it. I'm just not knowledgeable enough about the issue to give quality input on that, I guess. So I'll have to pass on that one for now. All right. So with that, I think we're ended mid-July already. Gosh, summer's already half over. So, but have a great week, you guys. And thanks for the posts. Thanks for the people who jump on those posts and provide insight. 99% of it is good insight. Some of it is questionable, but I know they mean well. But we'll see. So, but have a great week. Enjoy the weather. It's great here, and I'm glad to be back. The problem with vacations are that you often need a vacation from vacation. I actually just need 26 hours a day for the next week to get caught back up. So, but that's why these lives make it nice and easy, because I can jump right on here and answer questions directly in 10 minutes. So, all right, guys, take it easy. Have a good week, and stay hydrated. All right, see ya.